Welcome to Dare to be Seen, brought to you by Elyssa Vulpes Productions and EDN Publishing. Join our host, Elisa Di Napoli, aka Elyssa Vulpes, author, artist coach, and singer-songwriter, as she engages in down-to-earth, insightful, and inspiring conversations with female indie singer-songwriters, composers, and musicians. We shall discuss the lessons and personal stories of women who dare to be seen, scratching beneath the surface to explore challenging truths, forge deeper connections, and foster personal transformation. Get inspired, share your gifts, and if you enjoy the show, spread the word by subscribing and reviewing it. And now, let's get started.
Now, before we get started on today's topic, I would like to invite you to go to tinyurl.com/poddiscount and you will be able to get 20% off my online course, Dare to be Seen, where you will discover how to magnify your presence and command the stage in 10 easy steps so you can perform at your best in front of a larger audience. And now, let's get on with today's topic. Welcome to Dare to be Seen, Personal Transformation Through Music. My name is Elisa Di Napoli, aka Elyssa Vulpes, and today I want to talk about songwriting, using two wonderful tools to make your lyrics stand out. And one is sensory writing, and the other one is writing through a lens. Now, we're going to go into real detail with this, so make sure you got a piece of paper and a pen. Just the other day, while I was doing a creative coaching session with one of my artist clients, the question I got asked was, how do I come up with good lyrics for my song? Now, of course, there could be a lot of answers to these questions, and the obvious ones are to do with simply really connecting to the music, if the music is already being created, that is, and allowing that to inform the writing. Now, that's a kind of approach that you can always use, but sometimes you want to do the opposite. You want to write from the title, for example, or maybe you have an idea that you want to write something about. But even when you do have an idea, how do you know what kind of lyrics to use for a song? Even if your song is not particularly lyric based, it is, I believe, important to write lyrics that fit with the music. And if you were to compare a song that has wonderful lyrics with a song that doesn't have great lyrics, or lyrics that don't mean very much or don't evoke very much, then the first song is going to win. Now, for me, lyric writing was never a big problem because I was one of those people that came to music through poetry. I started writing poetry when I was 12, and then I progressed to lyric writing songs. But I know that a lot of people struggle with this and feel nervous. They don't want to be cliche, they don't want to say something silly. And of course, like I said before, depending on the genre, sometimes the lyrics may lead the song experience, but sometimes they just hang in the background. In any case, there are many tools for gaining confidence, instruction, and clarity when it comes to lyric writing, but by far one of the most important and fundamental tool that I've found in my 20 years of songwriting is sensory writing and writing through a lens. I learned this from Pat Pattison at Berklee College, and when I did that course with him, Writing Better Lyrics, I have to say my mind just about exploded. And afterwards, I wrote my best songs. So I'd like to share just a little bit that I have learned from him and from other teachers. So what is sensory writing? Well, sensory writing is writing from the senses. That means, of course, touch, taste, sight, sound, smell, and movement. And why is this important? Because when we use our senses, we encourage the listener to use their senses too. And they will experience the song rather than be told what they should experience in the song. So basically, instead of standing outside of the experience, they are inside the experience. This is something that poets and short story writers and novelists use too. They are told that it is important to show, not tell. Now, I would slightly disagree with that, in that there is always a place to be showing and a place to be telling. But the difference between creative storytelling and songwriting comes down to how much of the sensory language we use, where we use it, and whether there is a balance between one and the other. The importance of showing is that when we do that, instead of just simply telling, we convey a lot more information in just a few short lines. And the most important thing is to find the balance between one and the other. Now, let's get started with the sensory writing. I want to really guide you into an exercise that is going to be very practical. And remember that you can do this exercise now or you can do it later, but what I would really recommend is to set aside an hour a day, if you really want to get good at songwriting, to simply practice the songwriting through the sensory writing first. And, if you just waited to be inspired to write, well, that's okay, but you're never going to be a professional writer. If you want to be professional, you need to learn the craft, and you cannot just wait until you are inspired. So, what would happen if you just spent every morning looking out your window or writing for an hour, doing nothing else, not giving yourself permission to listen to a podcast or Clubhouse or reading articles on the net or surfing the web or looking at your phone? You're not allowed to do any of that. All you're allowed to do is write your song or stare at the window. Well, I bet that after a little bit of staring out the window, you'd get pretty bored. And then you would start writing. When you start treating your songwriting as a profession, even if it's not a profession, even if it's just a hobby, then you become professional about it and everything changes. When you set aside regular time to hone your craft, you will become a much better songwriter. Think about it this way. If you had a job every day in a sandwich shop, would you just go to work only when you felt like it? Probably not, because you get fired. And so the same is with songwriting or writing of any kind. Another example is when you want to lose some weight. Do you go to the gym whenever you feel like it? Well, if you do that, you're never going to get fit. You need to do it regularly. You need to fit into your routine, make it normal, make it what you do. So in songwriting, I believe that it's actually more important to develop your craft than to simply rely on your talent, because someone with talent, if they don't hone their craft, they're not going to go very far. Even if you have less talent than someone else, if you own your craft, if you practice, you're going to get further than them, meaning that you're going to get better at songwriting. You're going to write better songs. So you need to flex that muscle. You need to be more disciplined and practice. So I would suggest one time every day, just 1 hour, if you can, or make it regular. If you can't do it every day, then at least, 3-4 times a week. And make sure that you don't go over that hour. You don't go under that hour. You don't overdo it or underdo it. You just simply build that discipline to really keep on writing. And even Nick Cave does it. He goes every morning to his studio at 9 o'clock, and there you go. He writes all day. Of course, you don't have to do that because probably you have another job. What's important is to spend regular time on it. Now, without further ado, let's do some sensory writing. Okay, so remember that sensory writing doesn't have a meter. You're only using sensory words as much as possible. So using the sense of touch, smell, sound, taste, sight, and movement, and you're not focusing on thinking. So you are simply focusing on what you are feeling and experiencing. Now, in terms of what to use, you could use an actual object: telephone, computer, window, hand, doesn't matter what it is. You can also use an adjective, a descriptive word, together with a noun. So, for example, you could use a random adjective such as shiny telephone or disgusting glasses. Doesn't matter what it is, it's simply a way to make that noun more interesting. But if that doesn't work for you, just use a normal noun. You could use a random word generator on Google. You could go to Pinterest, there's loads of boards for prompts, or you could simply keep it simple and get a book from a bookshelf, open it up at a random page, and select the first word that your eyes can see. Now, once you have your word, set the timer for 10 minutes. You just write non-stop. Don't worry about whether this makes any sense in terms of grammar or punctuation. Simply write, but write from the point of view of your senses. Now, I'll give you an example. If the prompt is the wind, when you think of the wind, what do you think? Okay, I think of the weather, I think of the changing seasons. I feel sad about the shorter days, and I feel nervous about when the sun is going to come back. And sure, I could write a song about this, but it's pretty abstract. And it is quite difficult to really connect to this. It's very general. It's like saying, hey, how are you? Fine, thanks. It doesn't really mean anything, right? Everybody just says that. On the other hand, I could be writing something more like, the wind is cold against my skin. I smell burning leaves from the garden next door. My soft wool scarf is wrapped around my neck. See, these words paint a picture. See the difference? It is much easier for you to really visualize and really connect to these kind of words, isn't it? I really get a feeling of what it's like to have the cold wind and against my skin and the coziness of the scarf around my neck. It's easy for me to connect to this imagery, and so I bet it would be easier for most of us to do the same. So the difference is that I am showing you the picture in my head, and I'm not just telling you what to think or feel. You get to decide what to think or feel. I'm just painting the picture for you. Okay, so your prompt for today is crazy wind. Set your timer for 10 minutes. I'll be waiting. Tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock. All right, well, I'll trust that you have done the exercise. And actually, if you want to share the exercise with the listeners of the podcast, you can do that. There is a link to leave a message on my show notes, so feel free to do that. And I will publish it in any of the next episodes if it's something that's particularly cool. And you could just leave your name and your handle, social media handle too. I think it's important to share your writing with fellow writers. I know that we all can feel a little bit shy with this and think, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. But remember that this isn't about being good enough. We are okay just as we are. We are all on this journey together. And when we share our writing with our fellow artists and musicians, we get more strong, more confident. we realize that we are not the only ones that feel that way. And together we can feel more confident as we engage. So I do encourage you to share your writing. And to be a songwriter, to be a performer, you've got to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is what is going to allow you to connect to your audience. So you want to get started, don't you? I mean, fellow musicians can be your audience too. And just sharing nuggets with other people, just getting an opinion on something. Always remembering that, of course, your opinion is the most important. That can be a really good way to get started. And remember that there's always going to be somebody that loves your work, and there's always going to be someone that hates your work. And it doesn't matter at the end of the day. If you expect people to hate your work, love your work, and that doesn't make a difference, well, then you're fully free, aren't you? You're free to really be you, to be authentic to yourself, to just write the kind of music you want to write because you don't care about other people's opinion. Now, the next thing I want to share with you is writing through a lens. And this is something that has really been a wonderful tool as well. Now, writing through a lens means that you are writing through somebody else's or something else's perspective. And this can freshen up a song so that it's not always just you writing through your eyes or writing through the character that you've chosen to represent, but you could even use an object for a lens. So, for example, imagine that you are using trees as a prompt. Okay, next, I would invite you to simply make a list of all the images, the words that come into your mind that are related to trees. For example, leaves, fruit, wind, nature, branches, life, roots, wood, etc., etc. That can become your lens. The tree is the lens that you're going to write through. You now have some kind of language that is made out of the words that you've come up with, and these words are all related to trees. So your lens is the trees, but you're not going to write about trees. No, you're not. You're going to write about something different. Another topic that is close to your heart, something you care about, something you have feelings about. And so you could write about love through the lens of trees. You could write about a specific relationship through the lens of trees. And now that may seem really weird and insane. Like, why would you write about love through the lens of trees? Well, because it's more interesting, a lot more original, a lot better to actually show what you mean through a metaphor. In this case, trees. So I'll give you an example through a song called Strange Fruit and was sung by Billie Holiday in 1959. And so I'll just read you the lyrics, and it's about racism through the lens of trees. Southern trees bear a strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root. Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Pastoral scene of the gallant South, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouth, scent of magnolias sweet and fresh, then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is a fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rot, for the tree to drop. Here is a strange and bitter crop. So you see how effective that is. Much better than just talking about racism directly. You get the feeling of this, don't you? You get to feel your own feelings about this. But immediately you can see the trees and you can see the blood on the leaves. You can feel the breeze. You can visualize the black bodies and you see the fruit hanging. And there's no one telling you what to think. There's no one telling you what you ought to feel. But I bet a lot of people would probably think and feel the same thing, right? Tell me if I'm wrong. So let's do something practical and let's write through a lens. So, what I invite you to do now is to take that piece of paper again for 2 minutes and write words to do, for example, with house. Just think about a house for 2 minutes, one word, another word, words like desk, kitchen, table, sink, stuff like that. Okay, just stuff like that. And write down everything that comes into your mind for the next 2 minutes. Tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock. Okay. Now, of course, you can do this for longer. You can go up to 10 minutes, something like that. It's up to you. Don't spend too much time, but once you decide how much time you want to spend on this, just stick with that. So this is now your lens. And so if you wanted to write through the lens of a house, well, now the topic that you're going to choose needs to be something important to you. Okay? So, for example, you could choose anxiety or love. Whatever you want to talk about, it needs to be something that you really connect to. So, to summarize, what we've done today is talked about sensory writing and writing through a lens. My invitation is to spend 10 minutes every day choosing a prompt, a keyword that could be a noun or an adjective and a noun, and to start writing any place, anytime about this keyword, this prompt. After you've chosen your keyword, dive right into your senses and without lifting the pen from the paper or the fingers from the keyboard, continue to write through the entire 10 minutes. Now, at first, you may fear not having any ideas, but this is like mindfulness, it's like meditation. Try to resist the urge to judge yourself and to label the lack of ideas as something bad, as a proof that you've got nothing to say. Just simply breathe deeply as you focus again on that piece of paper, on the keyboard, and allow any images to just float to the surface and simply describe what you experience, what you see in your mind's eye, using sight, sound, smell, touch, taste, movement, simply to describe the details that appear in your consciousness. So remember, for this exercise, there is no good, no bad detail, no right or wrong way of doing it, no right or wrong way of expressing the detail. There's nothing song worthy or not song worthy here. This isn't about that. This is only about really focusing in, zeroing in the senses, bringing a memory, an image, or a fantasy back to life. And if you recognize in the middle that you're drifted into telling rather than showing, simply acknowledge that and gently nudge yourself back to your senses. I would say keep your daily writings filed by keyword, and you can then refer back to them for any song ideas, any song concepts and titles that you may then develop into verses or full songs. You can also use the writing through a lens to keep on writing and developing these ideas later. As a creativity and artist coach, I use this technique all the time with my clients because it is a real fundamental practice that can lead to sustainable creativity, to a sustainable creative routine, and also to a high quality lyric writing. And it can be difficult to understand how this daily writing leads to a real highly attuned sense of writing lyrics, but it is a practice that I thoroughly recommend without any reservation. It has absolutely helped me and countless other clients. And the results are quick and will get better and stronger with time. It will result in stronger skills with language and stronger skills with songwriting. And now, as a little treat, I thought I'd share one of my songs, which I write under the pseudonym Elyssa Vulpes. And you can always find my songs on elissavulpes.com if you want to hear more. So you're 40, single and looking for romance. It's late at night, you've had enough of all those bars with drunks. The leaves are falling on the ground, but you're not ready yet to be homebound. So you hit the clubs where you think it's easy to get laid. But after sex with 120-year-old, your only satisfaction's in the kitchen bowl, stuffing your face with cake. So you revert to Jim at work, who flirts with your best friend. Come Christmas, he'd hook up with her, and that will be its end. And then you'll feel emotional and leave the party early. Log on to online dating, chat with a 30-something, only to discover he's got a gaming habit. He's only free 1 hour a week, and he thinks having kids is tragic. And the only other guys who message you are either dull or creepy. They send you pics of you know what that only make you weepy. Where have all the good guys gone? Have your chances all been blown? Come spring, you think of getting thin, but since you know that gyms are green, you opt for tango lessons, hoping Mr. Right will come. But all you find is that socially awkward dude for whom life isn't much fun. You ask him out, but he just stands and stares like he's afraid. The youth sees as pure as the day he was born. He never touched a girl after his mom could him red-handed with the porn. Now summer's here and all the newborn couples are about to smile, but inside you just cringe and really wanna shout fuck off. This isn't fair, I deserve love just like you. You know how long I've been without a screw. A long time. And then the psycho guy whose wife divorced him last July, he thinks he can have you easy, so he gives you the eye. But you still got some dignity, you'll never stoop so low. You exit stage, salute him with a bow. And you think to yourself, where have all the good guys gone? I'm so tired of being alone. Is my heart turning to stone? I think so. Where have all the good guys? Oh, where have they gone?
That's all for this episode of Dare to Be Seen. Join the conversation on daretobeseencommunity.com and help us create an empowering community of independent female singer-songwriters, composers, and musicians who support one another. For show notes, resources, and information on today's episode, visit daretobeseenpodcast.com. And remember, shine your own unique light onto the world. It needs it.